Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and thanks very much for being here today. I appreciate you being a listener, a supporter of the show. Those of you who have been with the show for, is turning out to be the better part of a decade now. By the time this year is done, it'll be 10 years, and we're still trying to figure out what is going to happen with any kind of celebration. I don't know. I'm not sure what yet, but it's pretty cool. And it's because of you listening to the show, sharing it, subscribing to Keys to the Shop too. That's a huge part of it. So I would really encourage you, when you have the opportunity, to go ahead and subscribe to the show, share the episodes online, social media. Sharing is probably one of the best things, to gain a foothold in the industry. And what I mean is people are just in their business and not really aware of what's going on, except for the world of the coffee shop. And that you are here listening is awesome. But there are other coffee shop owners and professionals who would benefit from the content here. So go ahead and share where you can. Thank you so much. Now, Keys to the Shop does also offer consulting and coaching one-on-one with coffee shop owners and operators who are looking to improve their cafe operations, quality, culture, and systems and operations. So if you want to reach out to Keys to the Shop to think about, or just have a conversation about coaching and working one-on-one with myself, then go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. I wanted to take an opportunity to talk with you about our sponsor today, and that is the Barista Series from Pacific. PacificFoodService.com is where you go to find the whole lineup of different plant-based performance beverages that they have made that stand up to the heat from steaming. They have great texture. It keeps the flavor balance focused on coffee, so coffee is always the star here. And they'll send you samples. You can try it for yourself. If you're looking for amazing plant-based beverages for your customers, then I think you should be trying the Barista Series from Pacific. So go do that, PacificFoodService.com. Now, today's episode is a Founder Friday episode. And if you're new to the show, Founder Friday is a once-a-month feature of somebody who has founded a really cool coffee shop. And we get to hear their story. And today's is a little bit unique. It does those things, right? Of course. And we are talking to Peter Dore-Smith, who founded Kaffeine in London, one of the early coffee shops on the scene in London to do specialty coffee, Aussie style, espresso and flat whites and things like this, right? 2009 was like the heady years of coffee. And he has two shops in London, and those have been just the second shop actually has been going for about 10 years. And of course, now, the better part of 2 decades, Kaffeine has been setting the standard for, what is specialty coffee in London. It's an award-winning coffee shop. It's won Best of Europe before, and it is just the kind of cafe that I personally find inspiration in, because Peter is owner, operator, is there in the cafe working with the team, serving customers and working for his community and for his people. And that's the kind of stuff that really creates a certain kind of it's a differentiator. Now, it's a differentiator, especially because this is the kind of thing Peter wants to do. He chooses to be involved in every aspect so that it is the best possible cafe that it can be. And this is a work of passion, both for the coffee side of things, yes, but as you'll see in this episode, it's more than that. It's a lot more than that. In fact, it's about mentorship. It's about people and relationships and the things that a well-run cafe can actually provide for employees and the patrons of that cafe as well. And so we get to hear the story of Kaffeine in London from the beginning until today. Lessons learned, challenges overcome, victories won, all of the great stories. And also we end on a very important topic that really brings it all into focus, which is, Peter is joining forces with others in London and around the UK to try to lower the VAT, the tax on businesses that is very high in the area in London and UK, and they're campaigning to get it lowered because it is creating an environment that is extraordinarily difficult for coffee shops. And we're going to talk to Peter about the activism and the campaigning and what kind of things they have seen actually work to get an audience, to have a voice, to take into their hands the care for people to a new level, not just providing flat whites and great schedules and on-time raises and things like this, but also caring for the industry of specialty cafes that does that across the country. And I'm really inspired by what they're doing. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you care for people, you are dedicated to excellence, and you want to learn a little bit about what it takes to get together and make a difference when it even comes to things like policy that impact your ability to do business. This conversation with Peter Dore-Smith is going to be a great one for you. It's informative, inspiring, and gives you some practical steps to really take action, especially for those of you who are in the UK. So I'm excited to have Peter on the show, and I've enjoyed his content online. I love what he has created and what he's doing, what he stands for. So with that said, here is my interview with Peter Dore-Smith of Kaffeine. Well, Peter, welcome to Keys to the Shop. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time and thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Yeah. Busy, no doubt, as usual, right?
I was a bit tired today because two chefs down today.
Oh.
So I was in the kitchen at 6:30 this morning, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming home to talk to you, be nice and safe. Um, and today in London it's like 21 degrees. It's a Thursday. It's beautiful. There's
Yeah.
people everywhere. Shops were really busy. Probably the busiest day that we've had this year so far. So
Wow.
that's all positive news. It's really good. Team worked really well. Very happy. But then maybe tomorrow it might be a bit quiet because it's Friday and people stay home.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to
So
hear things are looking up. The big picture of kind of some of the stuff we're going to talk about here, we're going to talk about caffeine and your history in coffee, is, of course. We're also
yeah,
going to talk about the state of small business, especially out there in the UK. But this is stuff that
yeah,
applies to our whole, landscape of small business. And I
yeah,
think
please.
mostly
Yeah.
everybody listening is a small business operator. But give us a little bit of a background for what the genesis of like your coffee story is with caffeine. How did this all come into being?
I consider myself very lucky to be in the right place, the right time on a number of occasions. So I'm now 56 years old, and I came to London the first time in 1995. But I've always worked in hospitality. So I started when I was 16 years old. I worked in restaurants, cocktail bars, pubs, all sorts of stuff in Melbourne, where I'm from. And like I said, I came to London for the first time in 95. And London in the mid 90s was just amazing and fantastic and great. And I was 25 years old. And my father said to me, "You're in London now and you should follow your career and get a good job." So I got a job in a hotel as an assistant manager in a 3 or 4 star hotel, and I lasted about a week because it was not for me. And I decided, right, I've got a 2-year visa. I'm just going to stay and have a really good time. And so I did. So I worked as a waiter and in London, and like I told you, like I said, it was just fantastic. I ended up staying for 3 years. So I went back home to Melbourne in 1998, and I noticed when I got back to Melbourne there was a change in coffee culture. There were coffee shops that were architecturally designed. The coffee tasted better. The food was better. The process or the thing of going out to get a coffee had really developed sort of what I felt in the 3 years that I was away. And I remember there's a place in Balaclava in Melbourne called Wall 280. That was one of the first places to open. And St. Ali in Melbourne opened, I think, around the same time. And I was working in a restaurant in Melbourne at the time, and I was making cappuccinos with foam this big. And the
Right.
steam one was caked in milk, and we never cleaned anything. It was just really bad. I remember a guy came to work for us, and he said, "No, no, no, no! You got to steam the milk this way, and pour the milk this way, and clean the steam wand, and clean your group head." And I was like, "What all this? What's all this business?" You know. I was very lucky to meet a beautiful girl, and she agreed to marry me. So we got married in 2002, and then 2004, Malta joined the EU, and Malta is where her parents are from.
Hmm.
So she was able to get an EU passport, and she'd never been to London before, whereas I had. She said, "I'd really like to go and live in London." I was like, "Oh, come on, beautiful, let's do that." So we arrived in 2005 in June, and the first thing we said to our friends was, "Where do we go to get a good cup of coffee?" And they said, "Cafe Nero,"
Hmm.
which in the UK is a massive chain, right? I said, "Where's the good coffee in London?" Because in Melbourne, it was everywhere, right? We knew that from 1998. And they said, "No, there's nowhere." And then I remember walking down, it's called Berwick Street in Soho in central London, a very famous area, very famous street. It was a Saturday morning in June. And I looked up and I saw this shop, and it was flat white. And it looked really cool. And I went inside and I got a flat white, drank it, texted my wife and said, "We've now found good coffee in London. This is amazing. You've got to come down here and check it out." And for me, flat white is if anyone's in London or in coffee, you come to London, you've got to go to flat white. It's like a pilgrimage, because
Hmm.
for the next 3 or 4 years, that was the place to go in London to get good coffee, really. And it was a really small shop, maybe doing, the story is 1,000 coffees a day in the busy time. So really, really busy. And that to me was then my inspiration, because I knew it worked in Australia. And if it was starting to work here, and there were lots of Australians over here and people traveling to Australia, then I was pretty sure that the coffee culture would then start to grow in the UK as well. And I thought to myself, well, I've always wanted to have a hospitality business. And so I think it should be a coffee shop.
Hmm.
And I was working at the time at a place called Lord's Cricket Ground, which, if you know English cricket, it's the most famous cricket ground in the world. And I was a staffing manager there, and which is again an incredible job for someone from the outskirts, the suburbs of Melbourne, to come and work at this super famous cricket ground. And I just kept talking about opening my own coffee shop. And my wife said eventually, she said, "Can you stop talking about it and go and do it?" And so I've never been a barista. I've never been able to really make good specialty coffee. The only coffee I used to be able to make was cappuccinos with foam. But for me, I wanted to open a hospitality business, and so therefore focus on obviously coffee, but also food and service as well. And in 2008, 2009, there was maybe 5 or 6 or maybe even less than 10 specialty coffee shops in London. James Hoffman had opened Square Mile Coffee in 2008. He used to work with Willem Davies down in Columbia Road Flower Market. So on a Sunday morning, we would go down to Columbia Road Flower Market in Bethnal Green, and Willem Davies, and he eventually won the World Barista Championship
That's right.
in 2009. And then James would be on the machine with him, and Willem would be there, and all these sort of coffee, sort of geeky people would be there. And James and his partner at the time, Annette, when they opened Square Mile in a little railway arch in Bethnal Green, they would have coffee tasting nights on a Wednesday night, espresso tasting nights, latte art smackdowns, cup tasting nights. And you go down there and you'd have 30 or 40 people just hanging out there drinking coffee and hanging out. And there was maybe, like I said, there was Browns of Broccoli, Tina We Salute You, Clemson's in Broadway Market had opened. There was only a really small core group of people. And nobody really knew what a flat white was. And yeah, that basically from there on, and not just because of me, but from there on, the industry in London basically exploded.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I'm very lucky to have been in that period of time in the 90s in London, where music and rave culture and Britpop and everything was going off. It was fantastic. And I'm very lucky to have been in the same time London at the start of the whole coffee scene and to
Yeah.
see where it's got to today.
Oh, that's so cool. And from a distance, so there's so many little snapshots that you gave there where I remember the watching from afar the square mile and Gwillim's win and all of these
Yeah,
things. It was very, very cool. And when you getting steeped in this culture, now it's time to be the entrepreneur and start your own thing,
yeah,
which, now you've got Melbourne, you've got London, and all of the culture there. What goes into deciding how you open this cafe with all these options? You got to have a choice. You choose what you're going to be, what you're going
yeah.
to make. What
hmm
went into the start of Caffeine, and what was the idea?
An incredible amount of planning, like massive amount of planning went into it. I would say just plan, huge amount. So writing a great business plan, thinking about obviously the coffee and the food and the style of people or the demographic more so of people that I wanted to serve and thought would be attracted to that.
Yeah.
So again, I'm incredibly lucky because my wife is beautiful, amazing, and works in packaging design. And so I'm used to that creative industry as well. So I started looking in areas, and I thought I want to open my shop in an area where there's creative people, right? And so I looked in areas of Shoreditch, Soho, Clerkenwell, and Fitzrovia, which is where we ended up. And it turned out that my wife was working just down the street in that same area, Fitzrovia, and her boss knew that we were looking for a shop. We'd been looking for maybe 6 months to find a place that was suitable and we could afford. And she said, "There's a shop down the street. Why don't you go and have a look?" And so, therefore, part of that planning was thinking about what sort of people would be attracted to going out and having coffee and having food. And as I said, I always wanted to have food as a main part of it. So in those days, especially, Chef Jamie Oliver and Chef Yotam Ottolenghi were hugely influential. So I took a lot of inspiration from them. And I sort of created items of stuff that I thought would be really good. But I also looked at things that were in other coffee shops as well at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of created a menu. And when I employed my first chef, I said, "These are my ideas." And he said, "Okay, I can go with that and I can do that." So we knew we wanted breakfast items, lunch items, bakery items as well. But at the time, in the UK, a shop had a specific license to trade. So, for example, a restaurant would be categorized as A3, and an office might be like B1. All right, and
Mm.
these are all determined by the local council. And a retail shop would be A1, and that means a retail shop. You could be a clothes shop, you could be a Starbucks or a Nero or something like that. But it means that you're basically selling stuff to take away, to take off the premises. And so you weren't allowed to cook food to order. So
Mm.
all the food that we had to do was all basically cooked, but put up on display for people to come in and primarily take away. So
Yeah.
we only had we only have 20 seats in the shop altogether. And at the time, there were a company called Taylor Street Baristas,
Right.
who were fantastic and a great inspiration to me, great help. And I remember asking, I think Nick or Andrew, and they said, I said, "What can I do with food? Can I cook food?" And they said, "Yeah, you can cook anything you want, but you can't have people sitting down and eating it, like to order,
Yeah.
right?" So that whole thing concept, and that's changed now because you can cook food to order in almost any shop in the UK. But in those days, you had to think about and the planning of how you're going to construct your menu. And I really, I pushed the envelope, I guess you could say, for that, because all the food that we had in the shop itself, and to me, food is really, really, really important to me, to the viability of the business
Yeah.
as well. Everything we do is made fresh on site in the kitchen. So we make all the sauces, we make our own jams, we make our own peanut butters, uh, everything we do, and we change the menu on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of process goes into that as well. But I actually got investigated by Westminster Council, which is the local council, because they came along, and at the time we were doing 500 or 600 coffees a day. We were really busy doing a lot of food as well. And they came in and said, "We think that you're breaking the law or the regulations, and you shouldn't be doing that." So they came in, looked at my menus, looked at my ovens, took photos, looked at all the seating and everything. And they came back and they said, "Okay, you should maybe have less seats." And like, I've got 20 seats and I'm doing 600 covers a day. Like, so it was quite interesting. It was a really big thing. What's the difference between A1 and A3? And a lot of people were very confused on what they could cook or not cook. So it was a huge part of the planning.
Yeah.
But I also had a lot of help from people in the initial planning stages. So James Hoffman, obviously, the Taylor Street people as well. A lot of Gwilym Davies was a great help too. And what I try to do these days and have done for a long time is people come to me and say, "Hey, can I sit down with you and talk about opening a coffee shop?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'll help you sit down with you for 30 minutes and basically give that back." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hugely important for me because I was helped so much in my early days. But an incredible amount of planning from doing the business plan, working out the finances, and looking back at my financial projections now in my business plan that I wrote, like it was so wrong. I was so out. I'm like, why they gave me money, I've got no idea, but they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just a classic case of government bureaucracy making it difficult to do business. Well, which
From
we're
the
gonna.
food point of view, definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so many people. And I used to write a blog, and there's a blog post that I wrote, A1 or A3, what's the difference? And it was the most read blog that I ever had because
Mm,
people would be Googling A1 or A3, what can I do? Like coffee shops across the UK. And
yeah.
it was a really hard thing to understand and what to do because you didn't know if you're going to get in trouble. You didn't know what you could cook, not cook. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really different.
Quite different. So yeah, I mean, it has huge implications on what you choose to do and who you become and what your brand is known for and the
Yeah, very much.
reputation you build. So it's it sets the trajectory for everything. And so I imagine a lot of people, maybe they didn't have as much dogged determination to do what their vision was in the constraints, and so they may have just given up and left a
Yeah.
lot of potential on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But in your case, when you started to find success with the brand and you were doing those just an incredible amount of business, what were you finding was the main challenge to keep things going at a steady pace? There's always staffing issues and
Yeah.
getting good people to work for you, the right people to work for you. But then
Yeah.
there's the productivity in an environment where you're very hands-on, you're making everything in-house. What were some of those challenges that you needed to overcome early on as you started to experience that success?
So I think straight up, maybe it just comes naturally to me within the way I run the business or whatever, but it's basically systems and processes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone in their place knowing exactly what they need to do.
Yeah.
Everyone has a job to do. Everyone knows can basically has each other's back as well.
Mm-hmm.
It has a structure of it to the whole day, so everyone knows how everything runs and having a place for everything and everything in its place. So and just making it a good, fun place to work. But when I first opened, 2009, like I said, there were 5 or 6 coffee shops in London. No one knew what a flat white was. So I first employed an Australian young lady barista, a New Zealand barista, a New Zealand chef, and an Australian girl on service. And they were my first employees.
Wow.
Because to have someone generally from an English background to say I'm going to work in a coffee shop really didn't exist anymore at that stage. And then very luckily, of course, like I said, I'm really lucky to be in these stages of life, I guess. The coffee industry started to explode. And so it was something cool. and it was a good place to work. And we were really busy, and we still are busy, but we were massively busy in 2011 and 12, and we had a really good name and reputation. So it was a good place for people to come to work. People wanted to come and work at Kaffeine. If you didn't or hadn't heard about Kaffeine and you just came and you applied for a job and you were like, I remember one young lady from Melbourne. She was originally from New Zealand, moved to Melbourne, worked in coffee shops, and she was like, "Yeah, I think I'm pretty good. I'm from Melbourne. I can make coffee." And she came into us and she was like, "Oh my God, this is just incredible." And it really pushed her and elevated her to another level of being a great barista. So yeah, but it's really about having that attention to detail and what we call the 1%.
Oh,
So the 1%, basically, I was taught this when I was working in Melbourne at a really big pub, bottle shop, restaurant, really big venue. And the manager there, I remember him, he was walking along and there was a vase of flowers on a little coffee table. I'll always remember this. And he sort of adjusted it, made it sort of just look nice. And I said, "Jamie, you're very particular, aren't you?" And he goes, "Peter, that's what you call the 1%. I said, "What's the 1%, Jamie?" And he goes, "Well, it's really easy to have a big building, that's 50, 60, 70%, and then you have all the other bits in there, 5, 10%. But if you want to be perfect, you've got to focus on the 1%,
hmm.
fine details, the small things." And so that's really what we try very hard to focus on at Kaffeine, those little 1%. We're just a coffee shop, but if we can be the best coffee shop in that area and
Yeah.
potentially across the UK, you need to focus on those small percentages. So
Well,
the way the flowers are in the shop, the size of the teaspoon, the size of the cup, the size of the water glass, the way that we put a knife next to a cake when you eat it or a fork, the way the butter is cut,
so
all those
all those
little,
details. Yeah. Well, okay. So you're talking about very high level of intentionality
yeah,
in an environment that, let's just face it, I I feel like there's beauty in the mundane. There is repetitive tasks that we do all the time, and it feels like the fight that a lot of us have, with even with the best of intentions, is to just get glazed over with work and not see those details. What does it look like to have systems that actually attend to the details while we are simply imperfect, limited energy, daily busy work?
yeah.
It seems like a real big fight and maybe a huge challenge.
It is a huge challenge to get people to come into it, but I think at the same time, it's a great challenge and an enjoyable challenge, and people enjoy being challenged for it.
Sure.
So, our latte art, we only do hearts, rosettas, and tulips. Always just done that.
hmm
The handle must be on the right hand side at 3 o'clock. The teaspoon must be just above the handle when you sit down in the cup.
hmm
So you bring these things, and there's a lot of places that do really attention to detail these days. And I remember Tim Williams or Tim Styles, who was over here, and he worked for a company called Workshop.
Right.
And he was amazing with detail and focus. But what I look at is, with me, I feel with Kaffeine, we were one of the first places to really focus on that attention to detail in a specialty coffee shop in the UK.
hmm Okay.
Nobody else had really done that before. And
Oh,
so
do
when
you,
people are coming into that, they're like, "Oh, wow, this place is different." They really focus. They really care. I
yeah.
like that. They have structures and systems. I have a job description. There's a structure within the business that I know and I can see that I can progress if I want to, even though we're a small business. The owner is here and he's talking to me and listening to me and understanding me and respecting me. And I like that as well. And yeah, busy, goodness, so I get
Yeah.
challenged.
Why are you still there?
That's a good question. There's quite a few reasons. One, I guess, one main reason is that I've never taken on investment. So I've never gone for investment to grow the business further and to maybe
Yeah.
step away and be. I've never taken that on, and that's either a mistake, potentially, or maybe I've made the right decision. But I do very much remember. So basically, the guy who runs Allegra uh, publishing and stuff over here, who runs the used to run the coffee festival, now runs the coffee symposiums, coffee festivals around the world. And he said to me in the first maybe 6 months, Peter, you could have 50 of these across the country. This is amazing. This is great. We opened in August 2009, and it was in February 2010 through Allegra that we were awarded best independent coffee shop in Europe.
Nice.
So it was James Hoffman who said to me, "You just want to be the best coffee shop in your area when you open. Just aim to be that. Like that's be the best coffee shop in your area." It's like, okay, I'll do that. That's cool. And 6 months later, we were best independent coffee shop in Europe. And so then that was therefore my focus and my goal as well. And that helps with the
Yeah.
staff too. Because I said I always want to be regarded, and our mission statement, our written mission statement and core values is for Caffeine will always be regarded as one of the leading cafes in the UK by the media, the public, and the industry.
Wow.
And that's our written down mission statement on the wall, in the induction manual, on the front of the job descriptions, everything.
Yeah. Leading in what? I think that's my first question is when people want to be, so if we pursue, which I don't think you were pursuing, but it was nice that you got recognized in those awards.
Yeah.
Um, but if somebody said, I want to be regarded as the best coffee shop in my area, then the criteria would matter a lot.
It
So how do
does.
you balance that pursuit without being slave to the trends of the time and being consistent, not being stuck in the mud or anything, but balanced in a way that it makes sense for the brand without losing some of the brand?
Yeah. So I think if I understand what you're saying is we're only as good as what we can be anyway. So we are just a coffee shop. We're not doing roasting. We're not doing other stuff as well. So I look at us as being this is who we are and the category that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to be regarded as one of the best. And also, when people say where do you go for coffee in London, we want to be top three, top five.
Nice.
When people say that, one of the big benefits that I've always had though in terms of building the business, building the brand, attracting staff, is the fact that we're Australian. And an Australian style coffee shop in London was very much, especially early days, a big hook for people
Mm-hmm.
because everybody knew, oh, Australian coffee is good, but coffee in the UK is not very good. So therefore, you must be good because you're Australian.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a way to attract staff to come or people to come and work for you as well. Some people are attracted to that, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so but to stay on, it's not easy to stay after 16 years to stay on top
Yeah.
and keep going. But we try and keep doing things that just keep the momentum going. So we've recently introduced matcha. We've recently introduced chai. If you don't introduce those things, then you can maybe slip behind a bit. Oh, your caffeine is not very good anymore. It doesn't do matcha, it doesn't do chai. But you do need to limit yourself on what you can do as well,
Why do you need to limit yourself?
because you can't have everything. I don't think you can have everything and just pander to everybody. You need to be able to
Sure.
run the business as well. So, for example, with milks, we only have oat milk and soy milk. We don't do coconut or pea or anything else like that. We don't do syrups. We don't do big cups, small cups. We only have one size. You need to have that certain. We don't have Wi-Fi. We don't have discount or loyalty cards. Never have.
Mm. Okay.
And so I think because people come in, they say, Do you have a loyalty card? No, no, no. Do you have Wi-Fi? No, no, no. Do we not pandered? That's the wrong word. If we allow that for everybody, it just creates confusion and makes it not nice.
Yeah. So the quality proposition is one where you're delivering to them something you know you can deliver every single
Yeah,
time very well. And it
Yep.
sounds like the worry is if you try to be a little bit too much, everything suffers, and so it's a diminishing returns.
Yep. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like the matcha is a great example because we looked at that really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the staff who are working for me now who looked at it were incredible. So because we were like, we want to make it proper, we want to make it good because this is what we do. We do stuff good here, but that's going to take time.
Yeah.
So if we're doing a busy day where we're doing 600 or 700 coffees in a day in 9.5 hours, we need to make sure we can have the process and the systems to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if that starts to take away from the rest of the service, then we really have a bit of a problem here. We want to make sure we have the quality, but we still need to be able to have the speed and efficiency with that everyone looks for.
Yeah. So the early days of coffee in everyone's description of early days of coffee is going to be including a cast of characters
Yeah,
that were gathered in these events, gathered in coffee bars, making pilgrimages to different places that they knew had the thing they only had heard about on forums and the like.
yeah,
And a lot of what we did in the early years of coffee, what in some ways it was for ourselves and for each other, and to push the boundaries of coffee, that coffee nerddom.
yep.
It feels as though recently, maybe, and when I say recently, maybe that's dating myself because now decades feel recent instead of just a year. But in the last 10 years, you got this, hey, we're good. What about the customer? What about the hospitality? And so when you're talking about this, I'm thinking to be regarded as the best in London, the best in the UK, even
Yeah.
would be something that you're pursuing from the perspective of your customers, but maybe not necessarily the coffee professional of today. Is that a true thing? And can you do both?
No, I think it should be both. And for one thing, I don't want to be regarded as the best. I want to be regarded as one of the best,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and to me, that's okay. So to be regarded as the best, I think you start to push yourself a little bit. That's you're putting yourself in danger, basically, more so because if
Yeah.
you just we want to be regarded as one of the best. And and I really got this when I started working at Lord's Cricket Ground as well, because you know I'm a teenager who was bullied and picked on at school and wasn't very popular and all that sort of stuff. And then I got a job at Lord's Cricket Ground, and like that's amazing, like seriously incredible place to work and to be. And so when we were awarded best independent coffee shop in the UK, as I said, that was therefore our goal to be regarded as that. So when I interview people, I tell them that story. And I say, we want to be regarded as one of the best in the UK. And I do that for my mum back home because she's in Melbourne and she wants to be able to see her son succeed. I do it for my wife and my children, even though my children, who are now 16 and 13, don't necessarily see me as being cool. Right?
Yes.
Dad, you're not cool. I own a coffee shop. I'm pretty cool. And your mum works in packaging design. Like, she's pretty cool.
That's right.
But I say to the people I want you to be recognized as working at one of the best coffee shops in the UK. I want that for you as well. So when you say to your mum back home or wherever you're from, you say, I'm working at Kaffeine, and they can Google it or look at it, and they know they're working for a good place.
Mm,
And to
yeah.
me, that's really, really important.
Yeah. So you want to
And
be somebody else's Lord's cricket grounds.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that, and I'm massively lucky to have been able to have people come and work for me who, and in on our blog post on the website, there's a thing called 16 Years of Legends, Caffeine Alumni. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a list of lots of people who have worked for me who have started off maybe, as a barista or service or chef, worked their way up within the business, and then gone on to bigger and better things. And that's the most amazing thing about this business is the people who work
Yeah.
there. Really, really, Yeah, really lucky
Yeah. I mean, it
to have
really is.
people. Yeah,
It's the
like you
heart.
just even. Uh, mm, sorry, I didn't expect that. So yeah, even you sit down in the kitchen and you see the chefs just working away and making food, or even today working and I'm seeing my manager just laughing and having a good conversation with a customer and everyone's working and the sun's shining and it's beautiful and that's what you're there for. And we don't necessarily make much profit these days, but to have that and those people and no one will ever take away the fact that those people worked at Caffeine over the last 16 years, and now they've got on to all these bigger and better things. And even if the shop closes down tomorrow, that has still had that effect, no, influence on those people, and that's just an incredible thing. And for them to be able to think back and go, yeah, that was a great time. When I worked there, I enjoyed that. I got a lot from it. I learned from it. I developed from it. I made friends from it. I was respected. I worked at a respected place. It was a good part of my life. And when someone says that about your business, that's the best. Mm.
That's perfectly said because it is a never-ending source of fulfillment and joy to create that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And when I was a young barista, to dial in what we would call the God shot and whatever notes of coffee we could crack open in the coffee, that felt like the pinnacle. But it is a real testament to where we are in coffee now to have this perspective on community, on providing. It's not really, it's the coffee, yes, it's part of it, it's the vehicle, it's the excellent, you want excellence in coffee, this is
Mm-hmm.
obvious. But if the ultimate sign of success is creating those moments, man, then everything else will be dialed in to that effect. that's
Yeah.
that's the why behind it all, right?
Yeah. And we want excellence in everything. And the base, drinking a God shot or a fantastic coffee, that's lovely. But what's better is you're really busy and then you just look up and your shop is full
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's enjoying themselves
Yeah.
and
Well,
everyone's laughing and talking. So, like I said, we don't have Wi-Fi, so people don't come to us for that. We don't have a loyalty card, so people come to Caffeine because they want to, and that's hugely important as well. They're there because they want to be there and they enjoy being there. And when you have those moments where it's buzzing and incredible, and it's not the coffee that's making that happen; it's everything.
yeah, that's awesome.
Everything that you've done comes into those few moments, and it's the best. Yeah,
Mm. I love it. It's simple. It's a challenge, but the challenge is part of what makes it fulfilling and valuable. The
yeah,
investment and the return. And your customers invest money, they invest time and energy, and they what they get in return is obviously why they keep returning to the
yeah,
cafe. And this is a good time to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on, especially recently with VAT and the environment that these types of businesses, hospitality businesses that
yeah,
provide the type of experience, uh, have to contend against. And I've seen so many of your posts recently about this and the campaigning that you've been doing and the awareness that you're raising about it. And hearing your heart about people, it's no wonder you're very protective of the small business and of the product of the small business. And so that's one of the challenges
yeah.
in this is to contend with these types of things. So talk a little bit about where you've been working a lot lately in this raising awareness about small business, taxes, and the financial environment.
Yeah. So this is really very important because, well, first it's hospitality, right? But in the UK, as many people know, the pub is an institution. And going to the pub is just the best thing, and having a pint or drinking outside or going for a Sunday roast. And the pub in the UK is massive. And in the UK, we have this thing called business rates. which is basically you pay a tax to the local council, and it's really confusing and really annoying because the money you pay, it varies every year. So sometimes they'll say it's this level, and then it's basically they'll drop it because of COVID, and they have discounts, and it's terrible. But before Christmas, they were saying that business rates for pubs are going to change and go up. And a lot of pubs got in the media for it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, what do you call it, big companies behind pubs and trade bodies and all sorts of things. So they get a lot of media. And they were saying, right, we need to change this business rate thing because sometimes it's going to go up maybe 30, 40 or 60,000 pounds a year in 1 year, and taking that straight out of your profit margin. And I was like, well, hang on a second. That's great for pubs, but what about coffee shops? And we don't have a trade body. We're all independents. And so I think we sort of need to create a voice or do something. And so I approached a guy who has a media company, and he writes these amazing guidebooks called the Independent Cafe Guides. And he does it for different regions of the UK. And his definition of independent is superb. Like, I believe this is what an independent is, and that's what I believe as well. Because, of course, you have many corporates over here too who have venture capitalist funding. But there's so many people, and the funny thing is, I guess it's partly my fault, because there's so many people who have opened coffee shops in the last 20 years. They reckon there's now about 12,000 independent specialty coffee shops across the UK.
Unbelievable.
But in 20 years ago, there was 5.
Yeah.
Right? There was Flat White, Clemson's, Monmouth, and there wasn't many places around. And yeah, lots of people look at me as maybe being an inspiration. I'm going to open my own coffee shop and it's going to be great. But we're all little independent operators, owners with no real voice. So we started this thing saying we need to write, we're going to get business rates increases. We need to write letters to our local members of parliament and try and get them to come and listen to us and say, we need to do something. You need to go and talk to the government above and do that.
Yeah.
So we started that campaign in January. And then through social media and being known, I got connected with a guy who has been campaigning for VAT, and VAT in the UK is at 20%, so value-added tax.
Mm-hmm.
So every coffee that you sell, 20% goes to the government. If you sit in a coffee shop and have a cake, 20% goes to the government. If you take that cake away, there's no VAT. It's non-vatable. And it's a really confusing tax as well. And it affects everybody across hospitality. But basically, when you go out somewhere, the government is charging you 20% of whatever cost it is for you to go and enjoy yourself. So
it's nuts. Yeah.
A pint of beer, a coffee, a roast dinner. I mean, there's so much other stuff. So yeah, it's a huge thing. But the costs in the UK have been increasing so much. Wage costs, what's called national insurance, which is a tax on your payroll, the business rates thing. And so you're basically collecting VAT for the government, right? So the customer comes in and you pay it every 3 months. So you're collecting that money on behalf of the government. You're effectively meant to keep it. And every 3 months you pay it to the government.
Right.
And sometimes with VAT, you can claim stuff back. So if you buy a fridge or you use like a plumber or an electrician, he will charge you VAT on his bill, and then you use that to claim it back against your bill.
Got it. Yeah.
But the majority of stuff that we buy in is there's no VAT. So we can't claim a lot of stuff back. So for example, my bill is usually somewhere between, for each shop, 20 to 30,000 pounds every 3 months that I pay to the government.
It's crazy.
But you're basically you have that money in your account and then you use it to buy a new fridge, or you use it and it's really making it a lot harder to make any sort of profit.
Yeah.
And so there's this guy called Andy Lennox, and he owns pubs and restaurants in the UK. And he's been campaigning to have VAT reduced and brought in line with the rest of Europe. Because the UK is one of the highest taxed countries in the whole of Europe. And VAT is one of the highest VAT rates in the whole of Europe. So Ireland is about to go down to 9%. We're paying 20.
Hmm.
Germany, I think, is possibly 7% it's going down to. I can't remember. There's other countries as well, they're dropping down. So now there's this huge campaign now that we're all pushing with across all of hospitality to get VAT in line with Europe. And that's how the campaign, so the campaign started focusing on business rates, and we're all a bit worried about business rates, which is fair enough, but it's now shifting into, if we reduce VAT, we'll be able to pay our business rates. We'll be able to pay national insurance. Because if we reduce it by half, that's going to just bring in a whole lot more cash flow into the business and help us out as a whole hospitality industry massively.
Yeah. And that helps the economy.
Yeah. So the next 6 months is the key, because what we call the budget will happen in November of this year. It's where the government comes in and does their budget, and they announce lots of different things. And there's elections in May, like a local area elections in May of this year. And so we're hoping that things may change a bit in May, and that in the next 6 months, there's going to be a lot more media attention and push towards bringing VAT in line with Europe. And at the moment, youth unemployment in the UK is running at 16%. So that's from the age of, I think it's 18 to 24.
Mm-hmm.
So 16%. But they're only the ones who are actually registering for benefits, who are, being recorded. So there's a huge problem at the moment. We're just not employing people because we can't afford to. My wage cost is running somewhere between 45 and 50%.
Wow.
It should be 35.
Exactly.
We're a what do you call it? We're a people heavy business, right?
Yeah.
You have to be. You're making food, all the food. We're making coffee. Obviously, it's not automated. We have high levels of service, so we're people heavy. But when I first started, we were doing 35% wage cost. Now we're doing 50.
It's not sustainable.
No.
Yeah. And
The
so
only way to stop that happening is to reduce the VAT, keep the prices the same. We won't reduce the prices. We have to keep the prices the same. They won't drop. But the VAT component drops to half or maybe less, brings more money into the business, allows us to make a profit and pay for a new fridge or pay for a new grinder or pay for a new coffee machine, or maybe, Chris, open up another coffee shop.
Yeah, imagine
you need
that.
money to do that, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have investment, you can't open another coffee shop. And I don't want to take investment. I'd rather grow it myself.
It seems like a simple request. Seems like very common sense, but there's a lot of complexity that's built in, and that bureaucracy and this the edifice of ineffective policies that run amok with people who are trying to do something good, simple.
Yeah.
And of course, this is kind of a grassroots campaign because, like you said, there are no governing bodies or trade bodies for coffee. And that's the case everywhere. I don't really, outside of, I don't even know what does Italy have anything like that, because they have a very regulated espresso environment. Yeah. But
then again, we have the SCA.
Okay, well, won't go there.
No, exactly.
Sorry, but enough said. But the part about being independent, it is fitting that this would be grassroots, and that you show power to power by organizing and by creating some kind of a movement with a focus, with a focus, a focused message. And so I guess maybe this is relevant not just to the UK, which people listening right now, I'm sure you'll tell them how to, if they're in the UK, how to join with you in this, and we'll give details about that before we sign off here. But overall, what has been the most successful aspect of organizing this kind of a campaign in lobbying the government to affect change? Because most of us are kind of just under the thumb of the
Yeah.
regulatory bodies that we operate with. But it sounds like we have a little bit more power than we think if we do it the right way. So what are
Yeah.
some of the ways that you've seen be most effective?
So the most effective thing really is writing letters to your MPs. That's what we keep getting told. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're a coffee shop in the UK, and especially if you're independent, because that's who we're looking after and trying to care for, write a letter to your local MP. If you want help with that, then look on my Instagram, Caffeine London, and there's a template within our link tree that you can use and will help you. It's a letter that I personally wrote and had a little bit of help with, but it basically outlines, this is who we are, and you can adjust it yourself and write that letter. And we've been getting meetings with local MPs or members of parliament. I've been to 4 myself here in London. The great thing is the member of parliament is coming down and spending time in the coffee shop, like up to an hour or more, and listening and meeting with the coffee shop owners. And I was invited as well to come along and sort of help support or help put my point across as well. The problem, though, is in the last 6 weeks, there's been no action. So they come and listen, but they don't do any action. But the good thing is that lots of people are talking about it. And what's also really important and has been great is that people are starting to realize they're not by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there's people out there who are suffering the same problems as them. When you're an independent coffee shop owner, you don't necessarily know what's going on in the rest of the industry or hospitality. And they're like, so actually, all other coffee shops, and they're all suffering as well. So I'm starting to feel a bit better about myself. And what's happening in the UK as well is that there's lots of really good hospitality businesses,
Mm-hmm.
not just coffee shops, who are saying, yeah, it's really hard. Because you look at your numbers and you look at your figures and you're like, oh my God, am I doing something wrong here? I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Like this is crazy, right? I'm not making any money. I don't have any money in the bank. You might be thinking that. And then you hear of other people. And that's one of the benefits of this campaign, is that it's helping people to have a bit more, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that relief, I'm sure comes a newfound energy
Yeah.
to reinvest into maybe making a change, making
Yeah.
your voice heard.
And
Yeah.
and it's a real. I'm honoured that people say this to me. They say, thank you so much for standing up. Thank you so much for doing something for the industry. Thank you so much for being so courageous and putting your head up above the parapet. I hope it works. There's lots of people doing it.
Yeah.
But another point I want to go back to, if it's possible, is the pubs in the UK, like I said, have this real strong connection about being part of the fabric of community and of society.
Yeah.
And you go there and you catch up with the people and that's amazing, right? But so do coffee shops.
Yeah.
But we've only been around for basically 20 years, is in a specialty way, okay?
Sure.
And so the media, the members of parliament, they go, oh yeah, pubs are important and this and pubs are great, but they also have alcohol, which is sometimes not very good. Like it's great when you go for a pint, but unfortunately alcohol also has bad things about it too, right? I
Yeah.
used to work in pubs, I know. It's a really big drain on the National Health Service, okay? And pubs only open from midday. But I can serve 300 or 400 coffees between 7:30 and midday. So they're people who are coming in to a safe space where they feel welcome, or they are welcome. There's no alcohol, so there's no problems or dangers. The people who are working there also know the same thing too, because lots of people who work for coffee shops now used to work in pubs, late nights, drunken idiots, men being, unfortunately, men, against younger women and making them feel uncomfortable. And a coffee shop is such a safe space to come and work,
Yeah.
especially when you're well respected and well looked after as well. And so we're really trying to push to these members of parliament how important a coffee shop is to the fabric of society, to the fabric of the high street and a street itself. And that didn't exist 20 years ago. You couldn't do that 20 years ago. You had Starbucks and Nero, but that was, and Costa. But, so it's a really, really important thing. And so many coffee shops do community stuff as well across the UK, whether it be art clubs or meeting up or run clubs or so many different things where they're bringing a community together.
Yeah.
And that's why they're a huge reason why they're so important.
It seems like a call to not underestimate your value and to advocate for, identify, and make people see your value.
Yeah.
And we're service people, and sometimes that feels weird to do. I think a lot of people are very bad at marketing for the same reason, because they are serving and maybe a little bit more others focused. But if you consider that what you're doing in serving your interests as a business amongst other businesses, you're serving others by doing that.
Yeah.
And so remind us again where we can go to learn more about what you're doing. You said your Instagram account and maybe website. What are those the places? Remind us what those are again.
So nothing on the website, but
Okay.
that's a good point. But Instagram, definitely. But the first point, the really easy one, is Kaffeine London, Instagram. And you'll see there's lots of posts on there about it as well.
Yeah.
If you are a hospitality operator in the UK, you want to be following, it's called Wonky Table Hospitality. Wonky Table Hospitality. And that's run by this guy, Andy Lennox, who's amazing and fantastic. Again, that's on my Instagram. So if you missed that, just look on my Instagram. You'll see that there. And follow them because they're the ones, he's the one who's basically bringing all this together and making it happen. And that's what we're hoping for the next 6 months to bring that around. But you said the word business before. And that's what's really very important as well, is you are opening and running a business. And you need to be really focused on that point of view as well. It's not just about serving coffee and talking to customers and looking after the people or doing community stuff. You are now financially responsible to have a business that works, is compliant with everything in health and safety and stuff as well, but then can continue on because you're employing people who rely on you.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the costs and the figures are so tight that you really have to be focused on everything. If you're making 20% profit, right? Happy days. You can afford to maybe have a few mistakes here and there, but you can't now. You have to be really, really on it. You have to know your figures, your numbers, your wage costs, your food costs, all your costs. Look at everything that you can within your business to save 1 or 2%. And that's massively important. And that's the way I've always looked at this as well. This is a business, and effectively it's a product that I want to maybe sell one day.
Yeah.
So I need to have everything in place. So if I'm putting all my care into making a cup of coffee or a piece of banana bread and I'm giving that to a customer for £3, £4, I want to put the same care and attention into my business.
Yeah.
My business is a product.
Well said. No, that's perfect. That's the perfect way to like encapsulate this thing. And as I do always, I would encourage people really think about everything that's been said today and think about ways to apply it to your cafe. Follow those links. They'll be in the show notes. And Peter, it's been great to have you on the show. I really appreciate you sharing with us. And I'm super inspired by your example and what you're doing.
Thank you. Oh, that's very kind of, I appreciate it. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
so,
quite a bit.
I'm very lucky to have lots of stories, I guess. And I'm very lucky to, like I said, been through this period of time.
Yeah.
And we want to keep going and keep looking after people and making great hospitality and developing people within the business who go on to bigger and better things as well. Because that's just amazing.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you,
All
Peter.
right. Cheers, Chris. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, everyone. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that episode. And if you want more information, I really think you should just follow Kaffeine London, Kaffeine, caffeine with a K, London. And that will get you plugged into pretty much anything that they are doing at Kaffeine, including the campaign to lower the VAT in the UK, 12,000 coffee shops being impacted by that. And I just loved hearing the story of Kaffeine and the consistency of Peter's heart for people, extending from the cafe, the staff and the customers, to peers in the industry. So if you want to add momentum to that, learn more, get plugged in by following Kaffeine on Instagram at Kaffeine London. And of course, a huge thank you to Peter for being on the show. We truly appreciate your work and all that you've been doing for coffee. Now, if you have any questions for me, go ahead and email Chris at keystotheshop.com, and I will be happy to answer those questions. That's where you can reach out for consulting and coaching. And I work one-on-one with coffee shop owners, operators, management teams, whether we're talking about creating some regular coaching over the course of many months, or cafe assessments in person, doing online workshops with management teams. There's a lot of things we've done over the course of the last almost 10 years of working at Keys to the Shop Consulting and this podcast. So it all starts with a conversation. Just reach out, Chris at keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS at keystotheshop.com. And with that, it is the end of our episode, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed this one. Big thanks to Peter again for being on the show. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.